Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Flesh Wound Farce, where we discuss and review your and our favorite comedy films. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. And with me, as always, on this program, first in the Northern Bay Area, is Greg. How you doing, Greg?
I am great, Ozzy. Try to find a new demo of Outriders. I forget. But it's been a good day. It was good times. How are you doing, Ozzy?
I'm doing fantastic on that same demo of Outriders.
Yeah.
Now, I don't even know if it's Outlanders or Outriders, but still fun nonetheless. Producer Todd, I know you're definitely not playing the demo.
I was not.
No.
I don't even know what I was watching today. I was watching Coming to America Pilot, but we'll get to talk about that later.
God.
Woo!
I almost want to discuss that first because it was so terrible. But we have to talk about the movie before we can get into that.
And
before we even get into the movie, for our commercial segment this week, thanks to Todd finding an exclusive to Japan commercial starring Eddie Murphy for the Toyota Celica. Todd, if you would please do the honors.
Hey man, hot news from New York and Tokyo. The new Celica is an incredible car. It's got glamorous styling, the incredible handling of the dual mode 4-wheel steering, and a great 10-speaker super live sound system. Everybody has heard about this car. So what's happening in Beverly Hills? I love my Celica. Suga, new Celica.
Okay, so for those listening on the audio version, just to give you a quick rundown of what we saw visually, it was a big yellow background where you first had Eddie Murphy on the phone, apparently talking to his friend, telling him about the Celica, and there would be a switching off of shots of Eddie on the phone, sitting down on a chair, and shots of the Celica. And then he asks what's going on, I think, in Beverly Hills or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it immediately flashes to the Hollywood sign, and that picture splits to show Eddie Murphy driving a Toyota Celica through what we think is Beverly Hills. And it's funny because the steering wheel's on the other side. So that's also funny to see. But you had the music going in the background, and the look on his face, I mean, like, I don't know how much money he got paid. He definitely got paid doing it.
He got paid a lot because that looked like a happy man.
Exactly my point. Todd, we can put the link to the commercial or the commercials down at the bottom. Now, to be honest, the link that Todd found this on features, I think, about 5 of these commercials all in a row. And I didn't want to play all 5 because when I was listening, I had to watch through all 5. I picked my favorite one to talk about, and I don't want to play all 5 because the song got stuck in my head, and I didn't want to do that to anybody else because that's not something I wish upon anybody. It's almost like an invasion of mental space.
I'm surprised you questioned the Beverly Hills because that was the whole joke.
No, but that's true because but the Hollywood sign is what threw me off. It's like, what's going on in Beverly Hills? Like, well, they could have just had the Beverly Hills sign that was even used in the poster.
Yeah, they could have, but
they could have.
I don't think they were going for accuracy when he's driving the Celica in America on the wrong side.
and he looked like a very, very happy man. Wow.
And you know what? I don't care how much money you give me. I don't believe for a second he was rolling around in his Celica.
That is true. Greg, anything you wanted to say? Todd and I kind of...
No, I mean... If you want to talk about the fakeness of it, I mean, the reference to Beverly Hills in his Beverly Hills Cop movie franchise, which that theme park was not anywhere near Beverly Hills, but in the Bay Area, my first job, California's Great America. So, Eddie Murphy's known for that, but the guy was getting paid bank at that time. It wasn't like a low point in his career. So you're just like, really? This is the choices you're making, but I'm sure he's like, I'll take it all the way to the bank.
But you know what? It was a
Absolutely.
thing, and they knew they weren't going to get seen in America. Well, they didn't think they were going to get seen in America.
Nobody predicted this. Nobody will ever see it.
Darn you, podcast, bringing it up.
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's we'll save that. Maybe I'll bring it up on the next one. I mean, we've never talked about the greatest song he's ever made. So
Maybe we will talk about that on the next one. Now, for this week's episode, we did watch and are going to review Coming to America. This film released on June 29th, 1988, runs about an hour and 57 minutes, so a little bit longer than a traditional comedy, but I have some, interesting thoughts about that whole thing. Rated R, and the synopsis reads: Prince Akeem, played by Eddie Murphy, is the prince of a wealthy African country and wants for nothing except a wife to love him in spite of his title. To escape an arranged marriage, Akeem flees to America, accompanied by his persnickety sidekick, Semi, played by Arsenio Hall, to find his queen. Disguised as a foreign student working in fast food, he romances Lisa, played by Sherry Headley, but struggles with revealing his true identity to her and his marital intentions to his king father, played by James Earl Jones. So right off the bat, I did say that this had a runtime about an hour and 57 minutes, which usually comedies have a runtime about 90, 40 minutes, usually no longer than an hour 45, some cases an hour 20. But I think in this case, the only other film I could think of to mind that kind of got away with this was Interspace, because yes, it is a comedy and there's plenty of jokes in it, but there's a real meaty story with actual character development and has needs stuff to develop and grow. So I kind of sets it, I think, a step above a traditional comedy and just makes it a good movie. Yes, Todd.
That's like I'm not gonna. Yeah. That's like a trademark kind of with John Landis. I couldn't forget his name. I couldn't remember. With John Landis films, Trading Places runs about 2 hours. Blues Brothers runs like 2.5 hours. He tends to make longer films for some reason.
I think it depends on the story, because I don't recall Animal House being that long.
I'd have to look up the actual runtime on that.
I know we did it like a couple months ago, but
that was also his first movie, probably a little less creative control.
That's a fair point. But still, as mentioned, Eddie Murphy, also starring Arsenio Hall, Sherry Headley, James Earl Jones, and Eric LaSalle. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because in my head, when I first saw this movie as a kid on TV, I thought it was Lionel Richie. I was so wrong.
At least it wasn't Dan saying it.
100%. Greg, any initial thoughts?
Well, first off, my wife and I watched it together, and her comment was, "Hey, he kind of looks like Lionel Richie." So, yeah. But at least she said
the hair.
Looks like.
The hair made it a big,
So why don't you do your hair like that someday, Ozzy? I think it would look great.
No.
Well, you might look like there's this wrestler that
don't.
If you got that oily hair. What's his name? Todd, do you ringing a bell?
No. Todd. Greg, what else are you going to say about the movie real quick?
No, it was fun. I enjoyed watching the movie. Yeah, definitely have a few thoughts about it that we'll kind of dive into later, but it was fun to revisit, that's for sure.
And in terms of me seeing it, I'd only seen it on TV, and I don't recall seeing it from start to finish in the way that we saw it for the show. Todd, anything else before we?
No, I did double check. Animal House was 1 hour and 50 minutes, so not too far off.
Oh wow, okay.
Wow.
But I like everyone else. I grew up with this one. It's always been one I've revisited every once in a while. Not my favorite Eddie Murphy movie. I think I gave that away on the last one, but yeah, it's still a good time.
It starts out with such heart. I mean, in my opinion, that he's such an endearing character that you It's not like your traditional comedy where, I mean, there's jokes in the beginning, but it comes from a place of of a strong character development, and is trying to establish who this guy is and what his wants are. And I mean, one of the funniest things, I know it was early on, but still one of the funniest things in the entire movie was intercoms at both ends of the table, where you have the parents
Yes.
on one end and him on the other, and he looks sad, and then they have to turn on the intercom to talk to him. I laughed pretty hard at that point, and to see James Earl Jones in this kind of role, especially at the beginning, where he's uh, a little bit more like happy-go-lucky because everything's going fine, and he talks about sleeping with the maidens who bathe him, and he has
That
this big smile on his face, like that's what I
you
do.
you would too.
Yeah, but to see, I mean, like everybody knows James Earl Jones from one of two things, if at all. I mean, Darth Vader's one, and if it's not Darth Vader, it has to be Mufasa. So to see
Right.
these,
Conan, come old.
fair enough, but still, that's you're not used to seeing that voice and then that expression come out of the voice,
Yeah.
like Ralphie from A Christmas Story. So it was fun to see stuff like that. But in terms of my favorite scene and quick laughs, had to have been, well, both Akeem and Semi, Eddie and Arsenio, respectively, are sitting in the bar, and there's just a quick draw of women that they're talking to. And my favorite one was where one's just kind of like, she's got this big hair, and then she's kind of got this like sloppily look, but she says like, I'm into groups, and our Semi's just grinning from ear to ear, but the timing was so perfect, is what, like, you heard it, and then like the minute was what you saw and how quick it was, that made me laugh pretty hard. And I think that whole scene, though, where even you had Arsenio dressing as a woman as well, was very funny.
I do have to clear something up. The beginning of the movie, I was a little confused. Like, Semi, is he just a friend of the family? Is he an actual servant? Because he came in talking some trash and got away with it in front of the king, But, like, so if he's a servant, I don't know if that would fly. Like, is he related?
He was, from my understanding, he was the like workout instructor. He played polo with him, and he was doing the I don't know what it's called, the staff combat with him.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
His official position isn't really well defined.
Okay. But I did appreciate that we saw James Earl Jones wearing his future job later across his sash. I mean, like, so.
And you know what I never noticed is that the eyes were jewels in the lion.
Ah,
Yeah.
They were. I never caught that. I was like an extra, like, wow, that's some detail.
But so for favorite Joker moment, like there's a moment where Eddie Murphy's in there and he's like trying to work up the boss because he's told, if you get in with this woman's dad, if you make good with him, then that's the way to win the woman over, And he starts talking about football, but he doesn't actually know how it's played, and it gets all crazy. And he's like, all right, I'm going to teach you a lesson. If you want to keep working here, stay off the drugs. It was just such a great moment because like he was genuine and like doesn't know it. But yeah, I just really appreciated that moment.
Todd?
Yeah, I got to go with the barbershop. See, I mean, it's just so good. I mean, it may be the one like a go-to one, but every time it's just so funny. If I'm picking like a quick throwaway line, I like the one with the stuff with the cab driver. What is it? When he's, is this shitty enough for you? When they pull up to the hotel. I don't know. It just makes me laugh.
I'm surprised that was the line that came out.
Speaking to the barbershop scenes where you had Murphy playing the actual barber, and then Arsenio Hall playing a different barber, and they were such contrasts of what you saw, and especially with Hall also playing a like a pastor, and then Murphy also
Mhm.
playing a singer, that are
Yeah.
also just contrasting from what you've already seen. It you can tell that the amount of fun they had just turned into this energy, and it was just fun to watch. It just made it. The words escape me at the moment. But
I don't think that without this, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, we would have got the Nutty Professor that we have now.
yeah, well, I mean,
I
why do you say good? Well, okay, I guess I could see bad thing. That's a discussion for another time. But I see your point, because Murphy also wears makeup and plays an old Jewish man.
yeah, that which is probably my
good.
favorite of the bunch.
But
Rocky Marciano. That's awesome.
even one of the, I think, earliest scenes or earliest films to have I guess, mid credits scene where you had the old Jewish man telling the joke. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm not gonna go ahead and butcher it, but man, such a great movie, and I honestly can't give it anything less than a 5, because it is a comedy. It made me laugh at points. It was paced well, but it had such a good story and genuine characters, and I just felt for everybody, and even to see the queen stand up to the king towards the end was also like, yeah, right on. This is cool.
Mhm.
It just felt like a great movie, and when a movie can be that funny and be that high in quality, I can't give it anything less than a 5.
With this movie, it was tough for me to judge and give a score to. Um, Hands down, Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall were a tour de force of acting. Like, their range with all their different characters was phenomenal. I was going to give it a 4.5. But after seeing the pilot of the TV spinoff, I have to knock it down to a 4 just from like that bleeding in. So
That you can't take that out on the movie.
like they allowed it to happen. Executive
Eddie
producer Eddie Murphy.
I was gonna say we're gonna continue the love fest from one to the other, but I'm actually a 4.5 on this one also. I think the ending for me kind of just falls flat. It's very abrupt, and it's just like, okay, you get the wedding and you get the unveiling. I don't know. I always felt that was a little bit underwhelming for the end. We have something like another John Landis, Eddie Murphy trading places, which I think is perfect. By this one, it doesn't quite hit everything that one does. If we're just staying in the John Landis Murphy,
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was actually a gag that we missed out on during Trading Places. But there's a gag in all apparently John Landis films where there's a movie poster of
or the line is said.
or the line is said. Okay. But the particular line is "See you next Wednesday."
Yeah, every movie, and it's in the Thriller video too when they walk out of the theater.
Oh
Well,
wow.
in this particular instance, when it was shown towards the end of the film, you saw the poster in the subway, and I don't know if you guys caught who was starring in it.
No,
Dan
Mm-mm.
Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis.
no, that's funny. I didn't notice that.
Brilliant.
So from their roles in Trading Places, and then you also had cameos from Randolph and Mortimer from Trading Places, assuming that this takes place in the same universe.
Well, it has to now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally it's Trading Places Coming to America canon. So okay, okay, go ahead.
Technically, that makes Thriller canon too, because in that one, it's a movie also.
Mm.
Just say.
Well, no, but you don't see the characters really cross. You don't see,
Still
you don't
resides
see
in the same
Mortimer
universe.
you don't see Mortimer and Randolph in the Thriller video. But what I was suggesting,
They
like,
should have.
what if Dan Aykroyd has a cameo in the next Coming to America sequel?
Or Eddie Murphy even comes by like without any legs, scooting on by.
Well,
Now you know what, Ozzy. Damn it! Now I'm going to be disappointed if we
if
don't.
it's not. Well, I don't think this Now, this one is directed, the original directed by John Landis. The sequel is not, though.
No.
Directed by someone else that we will discuss next week, because next week we will be watching, reviewing, discussing Coming to America 2. I mean, Coming to America, the sequel. And if you're like, why is he talking like that? It's because in everything that you see for it, it shows coming, then the number 2, then America.
This
Coming
whole
Dose America.
this whole naming movies the same thing again when it's a sequel or a reboot is getting out of hand. It's confusing. There's like 3 movies called Halloween, and sorry, different man. But to keep it in the horror genre, real quick, the makeup on this was done by Rick Baker, who's like big. I mean, most people. He did American Werewolf in London. He did The Transformation. He did Thriller, which I mentioned earlier. He's worked with John Landis a lot. And the old age makeup was like a big thing at the time for it.
Right.
So
yes, it was absolutely fantastic. I had no idea actually that it was actually Arsenio Hall when I previously watched it. Like, I got a sense that was Eddie Murphy just by his voice, but I had no idea that other guy was. I thought that guy was another actor completely. So that's fantastic job. And I kind of
we had the cameo of Cuba Gooding Jr. as well.
Oh yeah,
getting a haircut, doesn't say a word.
Nope,
just getting his haircut. Now I did stutter when I was about to say fantastic job, because we did. Well, I did. I don't know if you guys just saw clips, but Greg referenced earlier, watched the Coming to America pilot starring Tommy Davidson, and holy cow. I remember talking about Black Bart. That was the spinoff off of Blazing Saddles, where it was just like, oh God, this is nothing like the movie. More of the same. And interesting, it was written by Ken Hecht, who also wrote Webster and Different Strokes. And supposedly Ken Hecht didn't take any didn't take any notes or directions or suggestions. Didn't take any suggestions when he was writing this one. So this pilot seemed like just a generic 80s family show. Like, could have been, it seemed like a generic script that they just changed a couple things in for, and just, oh man, it was bad.
It was very, I know. They even mentioned, they mentioned on the other, there's a little bit of informational video on it, that Will Smith was up for that lead on that. It would have been very Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, transplanted from one place to another, similar setup. You almost got your Mr. Uncle Phil, but just poorly executed. This is not the great television show that got away in any way.
No.
Yeah,
I can't. I mean, you heard it. It affected It affected Greg's overall score of the film, because there was association with this TV pilot.
Yeah, it was at least they were different characters. So it wasn't like Eddie Murphy's character was recast. So at least that sets it apart from the Blazing Saddles sitcom. But still, it even that all the scenes that they had in that diner, I was like, are we at the max? No, like, it really did feel like they were just taking bits and pieces from everything. And it was poor Tommy Davidson.
Right. But we do have one returning character.
True.
I can't remember.
I know. I did forget to leave out I did have a piece of trivia on the name Zamunda, where it comes from. It actually comes from Richard Pryor in his stand-up routine. He talk about his wife from Zamunda, which is a fictional country, and it's all.
That's great. Well, there you go. So that was Coming to America. If you have the chance to watch the pilot, don't. But if you have the chance to watch the movie, do. If you haven't seen it, even if you have seen it, if you haven't seen it in like 6 months, give it another go. It's worth it. I love it. We love it. Next week, we're going to talk about the sequel premiering on Amazon Prime this week, Coming Dose America.
And if you haven't seen Coming to America, T.O. America, as of this recording, it is streaming on Prime also.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. So, Greg, Todd, anything else you'd like to say? Todd, you want to update us on what's going on Flesh Wound Horror?
Our 500th episode will be on March 24th, so that'll be fun. Not exactly sure what we're going to do. We're going to have some giveaway stuff. We're still planning. All month we're going to have the show Ozzy named indirectly. There's always room for Shallow. So we got that. We got a bunch of other new reviews and stuff. We're actually going to go back to the live format on Wednesdays. So we're gonna.
Whoa.
I know I'm kind of scared, but
Yeah, good luck with that.
we'll see. We'll see if we make it past 500.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, that is Greg. That's Flesh Wound producer Todd, and I'm Ozzy V, and we'll see you next week right here on Flesh Wound Farce.